1140. The town of Winesburg is under siege. Food is running low, and the townspeople have nowhere else to turn. But just when all hope seems lost, an honorable German king named Conrad III arrives with his army to rescue them. Surely they'll all be saved, right? Not so fast. The king has a proposition for the people of Winesburg, one that involves letting his soldiers plunder the town and take whatever they want after they defeat the enemy. And for the women of Winesburg, things will get even worse once those gates are open. To find out why, stay tuned for more information. When the king came to rescue the people of Winesburg, he also wanted to take the castle and make it his own. There were two options for the women of the town. Either they could come with the king, or they could stay behind and become prisoners of the castle. Most of the women chose to go with the king, but a group of brave souls decided to stand their ground and fight back against the occupying forces. They didn't have any weapons, so they did the only thing they could: hide. They hid food, water, and other supplies in secret compartments in the walls of the castle. They also made sure that no one knew where these hiding places were, because if the enemy found them, they would have been in big trouble. But then something unexpected happened. The enemy left the castle. It seemed like they had given up the fight. Maybe they realized that the castle was too well defended, or maybe they just got bored. Whatever the reason, the women were free, or so they thought. You see, when the enemy left, the king returned to claim his prize. He let the women and children leave the castle with whatever they could carry. He thought that they would be carrying gold and jewels because who wouldn't in that situation? But he was wrong. Very wrong. As the gates of the castle opened, the king saw that each woman was carrying a man on her back. Yes, they had turned the tables on him and stolen away their husbands. The men were too weak to walk on their own, so the women had carried them out of the castle without the guards noticing. Now, you might be wondering how the women managed to do this. Well, let me tell you. It was thanks to their quick thinking and courage that they were able to save their husbands from certain death. When the siege began, the women of Unveiled knew that they had to do something to protect their loved ones. The men were too strong to carry out of the castle, so they devised a plan. They would disguise themselves as men and join the battle. Of course, this was easier said than done. The women had to cut their hair and bind their breasts before they could even think about joining the fight. But they were determined to save their husbands, so nothing could stop them. Once they were disguised, the women snuck out of the castle and joined the fray. They fought alongside the men, and soon they were able to make some progress. The enemy was taken by surprise. They had never seen women fighting in such a fierce manner before. Plus, there was a lot of them, and the soldiers couldn't handle it. But as the battle raged on, the women began to tire. They were outnumbered and outmatched, and soon they would be captured. It was then that one of the bravest women stepped forward. Her name was Matilda, and she had an idea. She told the other women to drop their weapons and surrender. Then she approached the enemy and asked for their forgiveness. She told them that they had been tricked and that they were actually women. Of course, this would usually have resulted in punishment, but the enemy was impressed by the women's bravery. They had fought well, and now they were surrendering. This was not what the enemy was expecting at all, so they agreed to forgive the women and set them free. Now that the women were safe, they went back to the castle and reunited with their husbands. They were overjoyed to be alive and together again. And that's not all. When the king heard about the women's bravery, he gave them a reward. He gave them permission to take whatever they wanted from the castle. The women were stunned. They had risked their lives to save their husbands, and now they were being rewarded. Of course, they could have taken gold or jewels, but that wasn't what they wanted. What they really wanted was to be free to go where they pleased. So that's what they did. They left the castle and went to live wherever they wanted. They had proven that they were brave enough to fight for what they believed in, and they were determined to live their lives on their own terms. The king was impressed by the women's courage. He had expected them to surrender and give up without a fight, but he was wrong. He had underestimated the power of love and determination. He had thought that the women would be willing to sacrifice anything to save their husbands, but he had also been wrong about that. These women were not just willing to sacrifice anything to save their husbands. They were brave enough to risk their own lives. When the king heard this, he was stunned. He had never seen such bravery in a woman before. He knew that these women were special, and he wanted to honor them. He invited them to come and live in his castle, where they would be safe and respected. The women were grateful for the offer, but they declined. They wanted to be free to live wherever they pleased. They had proven that they were brave enough to fight for what they believed in, and they were determined to live their lives on their own terms. The king respected their decision and let them go. As the women walked away from the castle, the king called out to them. He told them that he would never forget their bravery and that they would always be welcome in his court. The women thanked the king for his kindness and continued on their way. As they walked down the road, they talked about what they would do next. Some of them wanted to go back to their homes, while others wanted to travel the world. They had been through so much together, and they were excited to see what the future would bring. And that, my friends, is the story of the brave women of Unveiled. These women were not just wives, they were warriors. They were not just housewives, they were heroes. They proved that women are capable of anything if they set their minds to it. So remember the tale of the brave wives of Unveiled whenever you need inspiration. Thank you for listening and watching the 3Histories channel videos. If you enjoyed the story, please don't forget to share it with your friends. And if you haven't already, subscribe for more tales of bravery and adventure. Until next time, stay curious, stay brave, and never stop exploring.